What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Uncensored Podcast. And today you got your host. It's just us breaking down some wealth building formulas. Jacqueline, what's going on?
It's just your favorite uncensored advisors talking about building wealth.
I got to use those features more. I don't use those features that often.
Cheer from the crowd. Absolutely.
Absolutely, guys. Well, as of this record, should we drop every week? So I don't have to be worried about the date, because this is a situation where we didn't batch it and we're actually recording the week of the drop. So we are, what is this, the second to last week in March? Is that where we're at?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, almost the end of March. Can you believe it? Q1 is coming to an end. The year is flying by. So how are you feeling about Q1 so far, Jacqueline?
I feel pretty good about Q1. It's always nice when the weather changes in Atlanta and it gets warm. It's already warm here, so it makes me feel even better about moving into Q2. What do you mean? How do I feel about Q1? From a podcasting standpoint, from a revenue standpoint?
Just how you feeling about everything. You know what I'm saying? We're a year since the initial lockdown, right? And just, how you feeling about life, everything.
That's where I was going to go, was the year since the lockdown started. Yeah. Because I feel like, I'm like, okay, well, I can highlight the things that I've done over the last year. So for me, it was really slow around this time last year because I got COVID basically mid-March when we were shutting everything down. So I was sick for about 7 weeks. So coming off of being sick for 7 weeks and the doctor telling me via FaceTime that I really couldn't work and I needed to just rest to get my strength back, it really propelled me into spending more time on more of my business projects and writing my book and, creating other business relationships so we could do this dope podcast. And so I feel pretty good about things that have happened in the last year. From that standpoint, I feel like I'm in a pretty good space mentally, financially. So I am not a huge fan of the lockdown, but I am a big fan of a lot of the things that it's brought for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, you became a whole best-selling author in the global pandemic. Shout out Money Planning and Positivity, which I had the gracious opportunity to write the full. Matter of fact, let's do a giveaway right now. So if you leave a review on this episode, we're going to pick the best review. And I'm going to ship out one of my copies, which I'm holding close to the chest, right? I'm going to ship out one of my copies of Money Planning and Positivity to you. And all you have to do is write a review on Apple Podcasts, right? So leave a review. We'll read through some of the reviews, and then we'll pick the best one on the next episode. And then we'll somehow find you. Hopefully we can find you. I haven't thought through those logistics. Hit us up on Instagram if you're the review that we read, and we'll get that book to you. Money Planning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So Jacqueline, what is on the docket for today? Since it's just you and I, we get to nerd out on a tried and true financial topic. Typically we come about it in an abstract way based upon the nature of our guest. But since it's just you and I, what's on the table for today?
Yeah. So we're talking about the wealth building formula today. And everybody is in for a special treat, because what you don't know from the title is that we're going to give you 4 different wealth building formulas, not 1, but 4. So you can pick whichever one makes the most sense for you.
Absolutely.
Hip hop trivia. There's a million ways to get it. Choose one. My favorite artist of all time, mogul of all time. Shout out Jay. Shout out Jay-Z. Exactly. So we're excited to bring those to you.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. I'll kick it off because if we got 4, we can just keep it simple. I'll knock out 2. Jacqueline can knock out 2. And, at the end of the day, you could technically blend some of these together to figure out your own sauce, right? It's not a one size fits all. So, all right. The first wealth building formula that I want to share with you guys is the wealth triangle, right? And if you're watching this, the clip, or on YouTube, I can't do a triangle. There we go. The wealth building. Oh, there you go.
Wait, your Greek life, isn't this? I think I'm not supposed to do this, right?
That's Delta. But we're so far removed. It's okay. No shade. Okay, cool. Shout out to the Deltas.
Right. It's just it's a triangle.
Yeah. Okay, so wealth building triangle, right? Okay, so let's talk about it. So One thing that you'll hear me say, and shameless plug, I'm doing like the 10 steps to becoming a billionaire. And I know you probably think, well, you're not a billionaire. How do you know the 10 steps? Well, I studied billionaires and I'm going to become one, but I'm doing a masterclass in Pocket Advisor first week in April covering that. But one of the things from those steps that I'm going to talk about is that wealth is created through concentration. It's preserved through diversification, right? And so the first part of the wealth building triangle is developing your high income skill set, right? So you are the bag, secure yourself. That is the first part. When we all start our careers, whether it's a 9-to-5 or a business, you typically start out charging, a moderate amount, and then you evolve and you grow. You get more skills. If you're like Jacqueline, you have all the credentials behind your name, and that commands a bigger price point, right? Because she paid with her time, she paid with her expertise, and paid with her money to get those credentials, right? And in the sense of testing, you can't buy them, you have to earn them. But I say that to say, whatever your mix of your expertise are, whatever the recipe is, over time, you invest in yourself. And as a result of that, whatever it is you do professionally, you're able to charge more for it, right? And as a result of it, you become your first asset. Whether it's you, your business, whatever, you become your first asset. And the thought process, though, is you don't allow lifestyle creep to creep in, right? Yeah, you want to reward yourself along the way. The car might get a little nicer, the crib might get a little swankier. But by and large, if you keep increasing your income, there should be a bigger and bigger spread between your expenses and your income, which now creates what? Margin for you to be able to build wealth, which brings us to the next part of the triangle. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, then the next part of the triangle is super important for you, because the next part of the triangle is building a scalable business. And a scalable business is something where people and or systems make you money. So just to go back to the first one real quick, your high income skill set is where you make you money. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as that bag is big, right? Nothing wrong with trading time. People always say, I don't trade time for money. Okay, cool story, bro. If they pay me, a nice little bit amount of money to step on stage or to consult, I'm going to do it, right? And I always want to have that in my repertoire. But you can also build a scalable business. And the analogy I always like to use is, if I'm a barber, right? Even if I'm a celebrity barber, there's only so many heads I can cut, right? So I might then want to buy a barbershop, right? Or if I'm teaching somebody how to do something, I'm consulting to someone in a one-on-one capacity, I might want to create a course instead of just doing it exclusively in a one-on-one capacity, right? So you're building a system, or you're leveraging people to make you money. In the barbershop example, you have 5 barbers working for you. And so now you're making money off all those 5 barbers. In the consulting example, you now have a program or a course where you can teach the same thing that you were previously teaching in a one-to-one capacity. Now you're able to do it at scale because you're leveraging a system, i.e. a course hosting platform, to be able to make you money, right?
Yeah. And I think that there's a bar that I like to use for this. It's the guy who lives in the big multi-million-dollar home. He always knew that he was going to be in the home. He just didn't quite know how to get there yet. So I think for those of you who are thinking like, oh man, like that sounds like a lot. You want me to create a course, create a guide? Like, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, it's the fact of like knowing that you want that dream house and then just figuring out how you get there. So Absolutely. I think that it can be done, but it's more so about knowing what you want as your end goal. Absolutely.
And Jacqueline's going to elaborate a little bit more on this quick point later when she talks about one of the formulas that she's going to share with you. But if you're a working professional, or just someone who doesn't desire to run a business, which I can totally understand, right? Because it's a lot of work. You can buy, right, a scalable business, right? You can own it and not run it. And so I'm not going to elaborate too much on that because she's going to break that down. But just think about that. So don't think like, oh man, I'm missing one whole side of the triangle because I have no desire to build a scalable business. It's okay. You can buy one or buy into one. And the high income skill set is still applicable, because even if especially in corporate America, right, you're competing with your peers. And if they're measuring you against someone else, right, what's going to set you apart? Your experience, your credentials, all that good stuff. So that is always going to be relevant no matter whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you are a working professional. And the last part of the triangle is investing in high return assets. And that's where your money makes you money. And that's the one that everybody comes to me and Jacqueline for, right? They just want to skip over everything. Hey, I heard you guys can help me invest, right? Or that's what financial advisors do. And yes, that is an integral part of the financial planning process. However, it is just one part of the process, right? If you don't have a high enough income skill set that's even creating the margin for you to invest, then your money making you money is not going to feel like much, right? So that's why there's kind of an order of operations to this whole thing. It's like people, hop on Instagram and they see these screenshots of people, with these crazy returns on an options trade when they're not showing you the losses. And they think that that's the path. They think the shiny ball of making my money work for me is the thing that I need to jump to. And it's not true. You need to manage your money, right? You need to understand how to make enough of it, and then you can maximize it through investing, right? And so that's the first kind of wealth building formula I want to share with you guys. Any thoughts on that, Jack?
Yep, you got to use your money to make more money. That's how it works for everybody. For Bezos, that's how it works. It's not a fact of, he just made money. He used that money to make more money. So for any of these formulas, that is applicable. Let's jump into our big money energy moment.
Let's jump into it.
Flex bomb.
Is that it? I don't know.
Chime.
Not a flex bomb, but it's big money.
It'll work. So our big money energy moment for this week is actually for you guys to meet the first Black woman to become president of a Major League Soccer team. Major League Soccer is growing within the U.S. Do you think that's true, George? Do you think Major League Soccer is growing?
I mean, I'm not a big soccer guy, so it could be. It very well could be growing. I just would not have an answer for you.
So I have been to a few Atlanta United games. Atlanta United is like our professional soccer team here in Atlanta. And I can't remember what year they came, but it's been recently, like within the last 10 years they've gotten here. And if you go to one of those games, it is crazy energy. Yeah. It's more energy than going to like a Falcons game or a Hawks game. Like those are our teams here. So it's definitely worth it. So maybe it is growing, but I know that that's a really great experience. So post-COVID, we will be there for sure. Hold me to it. 1 ticket for you, 1 for Madge on me.
Hey, it's on record. You can't run from it now.
It's on record. So this week, the DC United team announced it will appoint Danita Johnson as their new president of operations. This move would make Johnson the first Black woman to become president of a Major League Soccer team in the country.
Wow, that's dope. It's hella dope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big money energy. Definitely big money energy. As
Black women, we're making our way to the top, where we should be.
Absolutely. So
let's jump into our next wealth building formula. So this one I'll talk about, and it has a lot to do with, again, money planning and positivity, the book that I wrote last year. And inside of the book, I break down the 4 pillars to a better financial life. And the reason why I did that was for a few reasons, but I mainly wanted people to understand that having an overall fulfilled life doesn't come from just money. And I think that, as Georgia said, I have several credentials, accolades, all of that in the financial industry. And I feel like people need to hear that from a certified financial planner, that having a better overall life is not rooted just in your money. And so those 4 pillars are health, they are financial freedom, they are your social wealth, and your time wealth. So for this wealth building formula, we know that time wealth plus financial freedom is going to give you that entire wealth building formula that you're looking for. So if we break down time wealth, what is time wealth? Well, that's the ability for you to own your time, because having a ton of money in the bank, but not having any time to enjoy that money, what have you really done with your life? There was a post There was a post that I saw the other day that said, Warren Buffett has like 90 billion or something, like 9 billion. Okay. I bet he would give 8 billion to be 40 years old again.
There you go.
Exactly.
And
Like,
to that end though, it's like, I think it really depends upon the life you live, right? So it's like 99% of the time that would be an accurate statement, because most people live in regret, or like there's things that they want to do, but they were afraid to do or didn't think they had the time to do it. But if you truly live the life that you want to live, hopefully you get to however old he is, 80, was it 90 or something? And it's like, man, because I lived such a fulfilling life. No, I actually wouldn't want to go back to 40. Right. I would just want to keep living. But I think the takeaway from that is not about him not living his best life. It's that we all can come to terms with the fact that time, right? If I could get more time, because his time's running out, no matter how good his life was, time's running out. And so if I could get that time back, it would be infinitely more valuable than the money itself. So no, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
right. Because what we don't want to be is what we end up being a lot of times, which is indentured slaves, pretty much. Mm-hmm. You don't want to spend, 70, 80 hours a week doing work for somebody else for you not to get to enjoy your time. Somebody, there's some other post that I read that was like, there's 52 weeks in a year. Mm-hmm. For you to only have 2 weeks of vacation, not a lot of time for you to live your life.
Right.
So there was a panel that I did the other week for some recent college graduates, and they were like, so what's kind of your advice for jumping out here? And I gave some very, prudent financial advice, but I also said, make sure that you're living your life in the same breath, because a lot of times we get out and we get started and we're like, oh, I'm so motivated to do this project. I'm so motivated to get this next designation and to get this next degree and to move up and get this next promotion, that you don't even take your vacation days. So you don't even take your 2 weeks of vacation that you're allotted, because you're so scared that your company is going to come down on you and you're going to miss that promotion. Mm-hmm. And I want to just encourage you to spend at least your 2 weeks a year,
at least,
doing something that you want to do, even if that is just not answering emails for 2 weeks and relaxing on the couch. Make sure that you are enjoying that time as we progress through life, because you cannot get it back.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like in America, like we're so ambition driven. And like if you do actually end up making it out to Jamaica in a few weeks, like that was the place that reminded me of that when I went a few years ago. It was like they work to live. They don't live to work, right? It's like working is a necessity to, put food on the table, whatever, but they just seem so free, right? And it was a reminder for me, like, yeah, we got big money goals and accomplishments, but we got to intertwine that with enjoying life, right? Which is why in our financial planning process, one of the things that we updated recently was really making sure that we were measuring those qualitative aspects of what you care about, right? How do you define freedom? How do you define happiness? What does wealth mean to you? What does legacy mean to you? And then when you look at a 7 days, not 30 years from now, not retirement or work optional, as Jacqueline likes to say, but when you look at the next week, how many things on your calendar are optimized for happiness, for freedom, for legacy, right? And that's what we really want people to understand, is that the time freedom and all those other qualitative elements are just as important as the money in the bank or the resources that you're going to use to be able to do more, because the resources just amplify what you're able to do. If you can't think of some things that can make you happy that have nothing to do with money, then we got a real big problem, right? Mm-hmm. The reason why I like going through that exercise is like, oh, wait, so we sitting here planning out retirement and investing and budgeting and blah, blah, blah. But when I actually just put down that I like spending time with my dog, or I like to go play golf, or like, I can do all of that right now, right? And so it's very eye-opening for people that you're not delaying your happiness. The money just amplifies what you can do, whether it's the Maldives or Myrtle Beach. You know what I'm saying? You still can have fun. Mm-hmm. The resources are just going to amplify the level or the caliber of what you're able to do.
Exactly. And that's like a good segue into part number 2 of this entire equation. So remember, it's the time wealth, but it's also the financial freedom. So the financial freedom is going to be rooted in the financial literacy and how well you understand that piece. And so it's funny because we maybe should have taken this this formula last, because that financial freedom piece, that may be like going back to the triangle, maybe all 3 of those pieces of the triangle fit into the financial freedom piece, because you're like, oh, well, let me build a scalable business. So it's less time that I'm trading. Exactly. So it's like, okay, how do you figure that financial freedom part of the equation? I think that the first part is going to be the financial literacy piece, because what I like to say when people are like, oh, who's your ideal client? Who would you want to have as your ideal client? Well, my ideal client is anybody who really could do their own financial planning and investment management, right? Like you have the wherewithal, right? You are a smart individual. You could learn it if you really wanted to. You could dedicate the time to it if you really wanted to, but you know that your life is better spent focusing on your craft and building your high income skill set. And it's better for you to delegate this task to somebody who wants to do it full time. So that would be my ideal client, right? And so I feel like when understanding this financial freedom piece, because that's how we're going to build true wealth, or what we define as true wealth, how are you going to fill in that gap there? How are you going to fill in the financial freedom equation? There's a lot of ways that you can do that. So let's move into the third formula that maybe somebody will pick up the pieces there and fill that in for themselves.
Absolutely, right? So this one's going to seem a little abstract, but because it's a perfect segue to what Jacqueline just said about if freedom is the goal, right? And we're trying to figure out what are the ingredients of the sauce to formulate that freedom. You got to have a game plan. How do you back into that? So that's a perfect segue. And so she mentioned, like if in your triangle, the reason why you're building the scalable business is because, it can kind of give you your time back. Then you need to maybe understand the pathway to exactly what that looks like, right? So there's this model called the DARES model, right? That essentially allows you to build that infrastructure in a way that really can make sure that it is truly something that you can remove yourself from. So when you're thinking about building this new scalable business, like now let's really have a process to back into that. So what is the first letter in the DARES model, right? Is it digital, right? So imagine having all the brick and mortar companies that the only way they can make money is if someone walked through their doors. We all know what happened to them last year, right?
Well, yeah, last year, but it's also very 1975, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you don't, so the only way you can make money is if someone walks through your doors or knocks on your door or picks up the phone. Not only is that really cutting you off from a lot of opportunity, it's also going to suck you in because you have to be present for that, right? So the first question you want to ask yourself when you are building that business, is it digital, right? Can I sell it online, right? The next thing you want to ask yourself, is it automated? Because if it's not automated, then what that means is you or someone has to fulfill whatever it is you're selling, right? So is it automated? Can I put the online course on Kajabi and someone checks out and then they automatically get their credentials to log in and then they can access the course? Or do they buy the course and I got to send them a link? It seems simple, but that could be a bottleneck, right? And so it's like, do I have the automations in place so that my digital offer can be automated? Because if it's automated, then you can remove yourself or another human from the process. Then in an ideal scenario, you want to ask yourself, is it recurring, right? Can I sell this one time? And as long as I'm continuing to provide value in an automated way, can I continue to make money from it, right? Because if you sell it one time, then you can just get to a target. Like, okay, let me just keep marketing this until I get to this point. Once I get to this point, granted, I still have to factor in attrition and churn and things of that nature, but I got money coming in every month. Netflix, right? Hulu, right? These are subscription models. There's endless other options, but is it recurring? Then the next question you want to ask yourself, is it evergreen, right? Is it evergreen? What evergreen means is it always available? Or do you have to like do a special launch, right? Like you see, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's different approaches, but you see people doing like these big product launches. The problem is, guess what? In a few weeks or a few months, you got to do another big product launch, right? So is it evergreen?
Yeah.
You know,
Or
go
yeah, I
ahead.
think, or are you subject to seasons? And I
Mhm.
don't think that it's a matter of, okay, my product has to be evergreen. It can't be seasonal. It's more so just knowing what you're dealing with so that you can fill in the gaps later of what you're missing. So take
Facts.
like seasonal, for example. I like the example of the woman who created that elf on the shelf with the
Yeah.
letter, and it's like, okay, I know she did a pitch at Shark Tank for her product, right? So of
Mhm.
course the first thing they go to is like, okay, that's a seasonal business, so cool, you make $1 million at Christmas time. What about the rest of the year? And she's like, well, what about the Easter bunny? What about the tooth fairy? Like, these are
Mhm.
things that aren't necessarily seasonal. Like, what about Christmas in July with Santa writing you, make sure you're being good in July?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the fact of like, okay, it really fully has to be evergreen, but just making sure you're aware of that and filling in the gaps on the back end.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because the purpose of this is not to say that you have to check every box on the DARES model. There's plenty of successful businesses that don't have recurring revenue, right? This is just to say, hey, if these are kind of the ingredients, how many of these can I fit into the recipe, right? How many of these can I fit into the, you don't have to get all of them, right? But how many can I fit into the recipe? Because if you just had a brick and mortar and the only thing you implemented was digital, that's going to be transformative. If that's the only one you did, you're only selling clothes at the retail location and then you turned on your online store. If you did nothing else, you're winning, right? So it's important to understand that, hey, these are just a few of the cornerstones that could really make you have a business that truly is potentially hands off or scalable. However, you don't have to do all of them, which brings me to my last point, the S on the DARES model, which is scalable, right? And we hear that term thrown around pretty loosely, but all scalable really means is, can it grow infinitely and exponentially, right? Based upon what you're selling today, if you were to 10x your current business model, could it still work, right? Or would it break, right? And if the answer is yes, then you have a scalable business, which means you have a lot of growth potential ahead of you. But not all businesses are designed to be that way. So if that's a goal that you have, you got to ask yourself, if you think about all the moving parts it takes to run your business or provide your service, and then you multiply it by the 10 times the amount of customers, right? Could it still work? And if so, great. And if not, is there something I could adjust to make it work to go scalable? Because, what you do at one level is not necessarily going to be the same thing you're going to be able to do at the next level. I think, Jacqueline, you tweeted last week something like, what you did when you had like 50,000 is not going to be the same when you had 150, right? So it's the same thing in business, right? When you're at 50,000 in revenue versus 500,000, totally different ballgame. Probably have
Exactly.
support staff. You used to be able to do it yourself. You used to be able to fulfill it yourself. Things change. So just asking yourself, using that metric to just ask yourself the right questions to figure out how many of these different ingredients am I able to use, which ones are right for me, so that I can truly build a business that makes sense and help me build wealth. That's the only reason why we're talking about it, right?
Absolutely. And the last formula that we have, arguably the most simplest formula,
Mm-hmm.
is save money, invest in assets, and acquire businesses. So that's one of your wealth building formulas, right? So very simple, very straightforward. Saving money. We all know and we're aware of, George pointed out the margin. So we need a margin between our expenses and our income so that we have the ability, the flexibility in order to save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about saving money, it's about using that money that we save to invest in assets. And there's all kinds of assets, right? It's arguably an asset to actually pay down your high interest debt.
Mm-hmm.
So we can argue that you would be using some of your saved money as an investment in yourself by paying down that consumer debt. So
Facts.
there's lots of ways for you to invest in assets, right? Maybe that is going out and getting that first rental property. Maybe it is, making that first investment in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe investing in assets is paying for another designation or another credential so that you can actually earn more money. Maybe that's an investment in an asset.
Right.
What's your favorite investment, George?
Ah, man, it's going to sound so cliche, but my greatest investment is myself. And I love investing in information and education and anything that can improve this, because when the sharper that saw is, the more I'm able to accomplish. And it's just an asset that I just believe in. I just believe in myself so much. It's like, well, like if I get better, I can do more. And that's my favorite. And again, I don't mean to be cliche, but that's my favorite asset. Second to that, I would say my favorite asset would be, I would say my business. Because, and again, this is probably, we're not your grandpa's financial advisor, right? Most financial advisors are going to tell you to put that money in the market and leave it there for 30, 40 years. That's going to be the best thing you can do, right? But when I look at my business, and you have the potential and have proven to be able to increase 2, 3, 400, 500% in a year, and you look at what the market can produce, that's a far better investment. Now, again, go back to one of the first things I said: wealth is built through concentration, is preserved through diversification. I take the money from the business and then I go invest it in the market, but I prioritize the business first because of the potential return. So that's my favorite asset, is investing in myself, and then secondarily, any businesses that I own.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does sound super like cliche, right? Because my answer would be the same. Of course, like I've spent thousands, $100,000 investing into myself.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, because one of the questions that I will ask my clients when it comes to obtaining insurance is, okay, what is your greatest asset that you need to protect? And a lot of times we want to answer like, I think it's my house or maybe my car. But it's actually your ability to produce income. So that's where disability insurance comes in, and why having disability insurance is so important, because if you were not able to work, how would you replace that income? So back to what you're saying, George, about, like I am my greatest asset. Like I am my favorite thing to invest in. It makes a lot of sense, because your ability to produce income will bring you more money over your entire lifespan than most likely any investment that you're going to make.
Exactly. And it's so simple, right? It's like, you just think about it. If you think about everything that produces you money today, and you were to look at it, tell me, even if you have a job, your salary is definitely 9 times out of 10 for most people, your salary, your income is the thing that's producing you the most cash flow, right? Mostly. And until you get to a point where you're piling the money in other places and the money's making you money. And ideally, right, it transcends. But in the wealth building phase, 9.9 times out of 10, unless you got an inheritance and then that cash is like producing a lot of interest or return on investment, it's you. So I'm glad that you share those sentiments.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, my goal, and this is going to sound really lofty, and a lot of people don't even know that this is real, but my goal is to self-insure. And a lot of times people think self-insure by way of like maybe car insurance or life insurance. I'm talking about disability insurance. Okay. I want to go back to my disability insurance company and say, hey, I made this much money. Okay. Go ahead and insure me for this. And they're going to say, yeah, you make way too much money. There's no way that we can insure you. You need to self-insure. I had that happen to a client one time, and I was like, oh, that's goals.
That's cool. Well, it's just out of curiosity. Do you remember what that number, like what the threshold was or the range?
I don't want to be quoted on that, but
Fair.
I'll get you the answer.
Got it. Oh, see, she's one of those people, right? She's not on the record. You won't get me.
It's high though. It's high,
but it's the goal. That's I'm gonna put that on the shirt.
Yeah, but it's the fact of having the money in your account, right? Because I'll have that conversation with a lot of my clients that are closer to being retirees, if not already retired, and wondering, okay, should I have life insurance or not? And I'm like, okay, we can look at your assets, we can look at your net worth and say, yeah, actually you can self-insure. You don't need life insurance. So my goal is to be able to be turned down by a disability insurance company before I'm 50.
That makes sense. I guess my only question with the self-insure thing, in the event that you could insure, right? Wouldn't it be more advantageous or economical though. Let's say about like the life insurance piece, right? Okay, I got a few million in the bank. That's great. But if I look at what it would cost me to have that policy, right, relative to what I'm paying for that, especially if it's like permanent insurance, or I guess it wouldn't matter if it's term or permanent, but relative to what I'm paying for and what I get out of it, wouldn't it seem like it's more advantageous to just kind of lock that in so I could be a little more aggressive with the investments that I have outside of that?
So you mean like life insurance now, lock that in?
Yeah, like locking it in, or just in general, right? Like if let's say you got life insurance, you needed 3 million of life insurance, but you had $3 million. So you're like, okay, technically I don't need to self-insure, but if I died tomorrow, I'd much rather want my family to have that 3 million cash to be able to invest more, make more money for me. And then for pennies on the dollar, I was able to insure my life or be more aggressive with that 3 million. And then doesn't have to sit in a war chest because I know I have life insurance. That's just my thoughts. Like, what do you think on that?
No, it makes complete sense. And I think it all just ties back to what your goals are. Mm-hmm. So if your goals are to make sure that your family has 3 million liquid, no matter what you're doing with your assets, then it makes complete and total sense. But if you're like the majority of the clients that I've worked with, and they're like, no, they don't need that much money. It doesn't cost that much to bury me. And I'm, typically people are older having that conversation, right?
Right.
So I think that it does make sense depending upon your goals. For me, I live in that camp of my family doesn't need an extra 3 million upon my death. So that's a conversation for another day, though. We'll take a deep dive into that. But So investing your money, right? We got that. And then this last piece may or may not work for everybody. It's the acquiring businesses piece. So we've got save money, we've got invest in assets, and we've got acquire businesses. And the acquire businesses piece is huge because of what you touched on, George, which is like, hey, I am able to do, X, Y, and Z with my company. And I've seen the growth typically be higher. And also you have more control over it, but you see the growth in your company and your business being higher than potentially investing in maybe Amazon or Home Depot or something like that. So I see acquiring businesses making sense from the standpoint of the time freedom and the financial freedom, because depending on how you break down that financial freedom, the ability for you to go out and produce more income from your business. So then you're getting some of the time wealth from that formula as well by acquiring a business.
Facts. Now that makes sense. Cool. Well, I mean, we just gave y'all 3 wealth building formulas and then 1 strategy on how to implement an aspect of a formula. So, you guys can take this, dice it, slice it, blend it, whatever you want to do to create your own formula, so that you can build wealth too. And of course, if you need help or guidance doing this, whether that's you need it in a more intimate capacity and we're accepting clients, feel free to check out CapitalWise, or if you need it in a more coaching environment, right? Or community, I should say, environment, then you can head over to Pocket Advisor. If you need some assistance. If not, just re-listen to this episode. Hopefully you took some great notes. And we're so excited to see, how you're able to build wealth for yourself. And Jacqueline, is there any kind of closing thoughts you have to tie up this episode?
Go ahead and hit that FYFS button.
Absolutely.
Real quick.
Fix your financial shit.
So in order for you to do that, I'm going to need you to pick a formula or kind of make your own hybrid, if you will. I need you to go ahead and do that. That's going to be your fix your financial shit moment for this week. So we look forward to hearing from everybody. If you come up with a really great wealth building formula, please share it with us. Leave a review. Again, we're giving away a book for a review on this episode. So we hope to see a lot of reviews, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Absolutely. Peace. Thank you guys for tuning in.